Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Family Shadows. The story begins with a shocking ultimatum. Before the wedding, my future mother-in-law moved 5 relatives into my $5 million bridal mansion. I quietly gave up my room. The next day, my fiancée broke down, crying, "Mom, you've ruined me." I thought hiding my identity as a wealthy heiress would win me a man who loved me for who I was. I never imagined that the brand new $5 million mansion I just bought would become the bait that would strip away the greedy, despicable masks of my future husband's entire family right before our wedding. Los Angeles in April welcomed me with a sweltering, oppressive heat that was almost startling. The blazing sun beat down on the asphalt of Bel Air, sending waves of shimmering heat to distort everything in sight. Despite the harsh weather, my heart was overflowing with a quiet, deep joy. Today was the day I would personally arrange the last pieces of furniture in my pristine new mansion. This villa was a priceless gift from my mother, Catherine Sterling, a woman who had spent her life battling in the corporate world to build a formidable real estate empire, all for her only daughter. Mom always taught me that no matter how much a woman is in love, she must always have an escape route, a home in her own name, so she never has to bow her head to anyone. I had kept my true family background a secret throughout my 3-year relationship with Ethan. In his eyes and his family's, I was just a normal graphic designer, born into a respectable but by no means wealthy family. I wanted a sincere love, free from ulterior motives. I never suspected that this very concealment would soon trigger a drama that would expose the raw, unvarnished nature of human greed. I had just wiped the beads of sweat from my forehead with the back of my hand, admiring the expansive living room designed in a fusion of Art Deco and modern aesthetics. Everything was perfect, tranquil, and peaceful. Suddenly, a shrill beep from the main gate shattered the quiet atmosphere. The heavy groan of the automatic gate motor followed. The electronic keypad signaled that someone had just entered the correct password. My heart skipped a beat. I had set that gate code just yesterday. Besides me and my mother, the only other person who knew that sequence of numbers was Ethan. He had said he wanted a key to occasionally come over and help me clean and prepare for the wedding, scheduled for next month. I hurried to the front yard, but what met my eyes wasn't my fiancé with his warm smile. It was a scene that made me freeze in my tracks. A group of 5 people was straggling through the massive, ornate iron gates, led by Brenda, Ethan's mother. She wore a loud, colorful floral pantsuit, fanning herself furiously with a folded newspaper. Sweat plastering her hair to her forehead, she scanned her surroundings with a calculating gaze. Right behind her was Gary, Ethan's father, walking with a self-important air, his hands clasped behind his back, occasionally nodding his head as if appraising the property. Next was Tiffany, Ethan's college student sister, her smartphone held aloft as she continuously recorded a video. Bringing up the rear were Kyle, Ethan's notoriously aimless, gambling-addicted younger brother, and his girlfriend Crystal, her arms covered in tattoos. The two of them were dragging 3 battered, fabric-worn suitcases and several cardboard boxes sealed with haphazard layers of packing tape, which emitted a pungent smell of cheap air freshener and old takeout. I stood motionless on the granite steps, trying to process what was happening. Brenda looked up and caught my eye. Instead of greeting her future daughter-in-law, she slapped her thigh with a loud smack, and her voice, sharp and grating, echoed across the manicured lawn. "Jesus Christ, it's hot enough to fry an egg on the sidewalk. Maya, where are you? Get over here and help Kyle with these bags. Quick. What are you just standing there for? A house this big, and you let the whole front yard bake in the sun. Don't you know how to plant a few shade trees?" I struggled to maintain a minimum of courtesy. I walked down a few steps, my voice gentle, though a sense of foreboding had begun to churn in my stomach. "Hi, Brenda. Hi, Gary. Hi, guys. Why didn't you let me know you were coming? I would have picked you up from the bus station. And how did you know the gate code?" Gary cleared his throat, glaring at me with his familiar patriarchal scowl. "This house will belong to Ethan when he marries you next month, so it's already his house. What's the big deal if my son gives his parents the code? It's too hot and stuffy back in Ohio. Ethan said you just bought a spacious new place out here, all furnished and ready, so he gave us the directions to come up and escape the heat. Now open the door and let some air in. Are you just going to stand there blocking the way?" Hearing those arrogant words, my ears started to ring. Ethan had given my private home security code to his family without even mentioning it to me. He had even encouraged them to just show up and move in while I was drowning in the endless tasks of setting up a new house. It was an act of profound disrespect. But I quickly regained my composure. My mother had raised me to be resilient. Losing my temper in a bizarre situation like this would only make things worse. I took a step back, clearing the path for the noisy crowd to flood into my private sanctuary, my eyes coldly observing their every brazen move. The moment they stepped over the threshold into the living room, cooled by the central air conditioning system, Gary's entire family let out a collective "ooh." Brenda tossed the newspaper onto the imported Italian leather sofa. Her eyes darted around, taking in the art on the walls, the decorative porcelain vases, and the sparkling crystal chandelier. My goodness. A single girl living alone buys a house as big as a palace. A big house just means a big backache from all the cleaning. Kids these days, just wasting money. No idea how to save for the future. Brenda spoke as she ran her hand over the surface of the solid marble coffee table. She had no idea that for my mother and me, the cost of this house was merely the tip of the iceberg. Ethan was right, Gary chimed in. Brenda and I talked it over with him. After the wedding, our whole family will move in here for good. A big house feels empty with just two people. Having the in-laws and siblings around will make it feel cozier, more like a home. Besides, you're at work all day. It's a waste to leave a place like this empty. As I listened, my stomach twisted into a knot. They had written their own script, made their own decisions about ownership and residency in my house, which was in my name, without consulting me for even a single second. I pressed my lips together, suppressing a sigh. I decided to play the role of a meek, timid fiancé to see just how far they would push their limits. Brenda, about moving in permanently. I think that's something Ethan and I should discuss carefully after the wedding. I bought this house with my personal savings, and it's designed to my own tastes to make it easier for me to work from home. I had barely finished my sentence when Tiffany, the so-called college student who spent most of her time on makeup and asking her brother for money, bolted up the staircase. The sharp clatter of her high heels on the oak steps made me wince. Just 5 minutes later, Tiffany's shrill voice echoed down from the second floor. Mom, Dad, you have to come see this. This room is huge. It has a glass wall overlooking the whole city. The bed is gigantic and so soft. I call this room. Kyle, bring my suitcase up here for me later. Startled, I hurried up the stairs. That was the master suite, my most private, personal space, the room I had poured my heart into, hiring a private designer. Every single item, from the silk sheets to the smart wardrobe and the marble soaking tub, had been selected with extreme care. And now, Tiffany was bouncing up and down on my pristine white bed, still wearing her dusty travel clothes. Tiffany, please get off the bed. This is my master bedroom. All of my personal things are in here. You and Kyle can choose one of the 2 guest rooms at the end of the hall. I've already had them cleaned and made up with fresh sheets. I said, my voice still attempting to sound gentle, but my eyes now held a firm resolve. Brenda came lumbering up the stairs, panting heavily. Hearing what I said, her expression instantly soured. She shot me a withering glare, fiercely defending her daughter. It's just a bedroom, and you're already being so stingy with your sister-in-law? Tiffany is used to sleeping in a big, airy room. You're the older sister. You should know how to yield to the younger ones. This room is for Tiffany. You can move your stuff to one of those guest rooms at the end of the hall. Anyway, after the wedding, Ethan will be the head of this household. They'll be staying in this room with you. What's the big deal if his sister uses it for a little while? Crystal, Kyle's girlfriend who had been quiet until now, chimed in. Yeah, Maya, we're all family. Don't make it so awkward. Kyle, honey, let's take the second biggest room on this floor. I saw it has a balcony with a bunch of pretty roses. They brazenly carved up my living space as if it were spoils of war they had just conquered. Rage coiled in my chest. Anyone else would have probably screamed and thrown these people out of the house immediately. But I am Catherine Sterling's daughter. My mother always taught me, if you want to pull a weed, you have to get it by the root. Kicking them out now would be too easy. It would become an excuse for Ethan and his family to slander me as an uneducated snob who looks down on the poor. I needed a complete and utter humiliation for them. Irrefutable proof to legally and definitively sever all ties with this bottomlessly greedy family. I took a deep breath and forced a weak smile. Of course, whatever you all think is best, just put your things away and come down to the living room to rest. I turned and walked back downstairs, leaving the group of them cheering victoriously as they began to ransack the rooms. In my mind, a clear plan was beginning to form. The clock struck noon, and the LA heat showed no signs of letting up. Sunlight streamed through the thin, sheer curtains, casting long stripes across the hardwood floor. All 5 members of Gary's family had made themselves comfortable on the living room sofa. They had turned on the large-screen TV to a comedy special at maximum volume. Kyle and Crystal had propped their bare feet up on the marble coffee table, spitting sunflower seed shells directly onto the new wool rug I had bought last week. I went to get some water from the dispenser, intending to offer them a drink, when Brenda's shrill voice cut through the noise of the TV. "Maya, what are you dawdling for? It's almost lunchtime. We've been traveling on a bus since dawn and haven't had a bite to eat. Get in that kitchen and whip up a nice meal for your future in-laws. Make something good, with lots of meat. My Kyle doesn't eat all that rabbit food." She ordered me around as if I were her maid. I gripped the glass in my hand, fighting back a wave of nausea at her condescending attitude. "Of course, Brenda. I'll just see what I have in the fridge and start cooking." I walked into the open-plan kitchen. My refrigerator was currently stocked with only high-end ingredients for a small housewarming party I was planning for the weekend: imported Wagyu beef, fresh seafood, and a variety of expensive organic vegetables. Looking at that culinary treasure trove, I felt a pang of regret at the thought of cooking it for the ungrateful people in the other room. But the script was written, and I had to play my part to the end. I took out a piece of beef to thaw and gathered some vegetables. I deliberately cluttered the quartz countertop, making clattering and banging noises to show I was busy and clumsy. While clumsily chopping a carrot, I decided to add a little spice to my performance. I let the sharp edge of the knife glide lightly across my index finger. A line of bright red blood immediately welled up, dripping onto the wooden cutting board. A stinging pain shot through my finger, but it was nothing compared to the icy coldness in my heart. Clutching my bleeding finger, I hurried out to the living room, my face contorted in a mask of pain. "Brenda, I can't find the first aid kit. I accidentally cut my finger, and it's bleeding a lot." Brenda was howling with laughter at something on TV. Hearing my voice, she whipped her head around. Instead of alarm or a word of concern, her eyes flicked over my bleeding finger with utter disdain. "Oh, for God's sake, you cut your finger a little, and you're acting like the world is ending. You can't even chop a single carrot without making a scene. What a useless, delicate little princess. Didn't your parents teach you any basic life skills? A woman like you, what good will you be to my Ethan when you're married? You won't be able to do a single thing for your husband and kids. Go run it under some cold water to stop the bleeding and stop your whining." Gary, sitting beside her, just shook his head and clicked his tongue. Daughters-in-law these days are a real disappointment. A little housework, and all they do is complain. I stood there, stunned. Blood was still seeping from my finger, staining the paper towel I had hastily grabbed. Just then, Crystal emerged from the kitchen, cradling the tray of imported fruit I had stored deep inside the refrigerator. It was a bunch of Japanese muscat grapes and 2 boxes of plump, red cherries, worth hundreds of dollars. She popped a cherry into her mouth, chewing loudly, and gestured toward me. "Brenda's right. You're a pretty clumsy fiancé. We found some fruit in the fridge, so we're just having a snack while we wait for you to finish cooking." Brenda's eyes lit up at the sight of the fruit tray. She reached out, plucked an entire cluster of grapes, and stuffed them into her mouth. "These grapes are so sweet. Now, hurry up and get back to cooking. We're starving. That little cut isn't going to kill you." I turned and walked back to the kitchen, a cold, faint smile playing on my lips. The cut on my hand was painful, but thanks to it, the curtain hiding the Sterling family's true nature had been ripped to shreds. They were a pack of greedy, selfish, cruel people, devoid of any human decency. In that moment, I knew I didn't have to show them another second of mercy. Back in the kitchen, the first thing I did was run my finger under cold water, clean the wound, and retrieve the real first aid kit from a hidden cabinet to bandage it properly. I wouldn't cry. My tears were far too precious to be shed for a group of lowlifes. I looked at the Wagyu steaks sizzling in the pan. People who don't appreciate others don't deserve to enjoy good food. I cranked the heat up to the maximum setting, letting smoke billow up and the smell of burning meat fill the air. Into the pot of vegetable soup, I dumped 3 heaping spoons of salt, stirring it until it became an unpalatable, disastrous concoction. While waiting for the food to reach the perfect state of burnt, I pulled out my phone. It was time to report the situation to the most powerful chairwoman in my life. I opened my messages and quickly typed a few lines to my mother. "Mom, we have a situation. Ethan's family, 5 of them. Use the code to let themselves into the house. They've taken over the rooms, claimed my master suite. Brenda ordered me to cook for them. I got a cut on my hand, and they just called me useless. They're acting like this is their house. Less than a minute later, my phone buzzed. It was a call from my mother. I answered, pressing the phone to my ear. Her calm, authoritative voice, now laced with concern, came through clearly. "Sweetheart, is your hand okay? Is the cut deep?" "I bandaged it myself, Mom. It's just a small cut, but their attitude is making me sick," I replied, my voice hardening. My mother was silent for about 5 seconds. When she spoke again, her tone was as cold as a CEO on the verge of a hostile takeover. "I told you a long time ago. That boy, Ethan, he has shifty eyes and a weak character. He's not a solid foundation for you. He does whatever his mother says. And now he's brought his whole family to squat in your property. Human greed has no bottom, my dear." "I know, Mom. I was wrong. I was blinded by the idea of a simple love. What should I do now to get them out without looking like the bad guy?" "Stay calm. There's no point in arguing with uncultured people. It only demeans you. For now, play along with them. Fully embrace the role of the victim. Remember to record everything. Save all evidence of their destructive behavior. Tomorrow morning, I will send Jessica, my assistant, and Mr. Chin, our corporate lawyer, to handle this decisively. Trespassing is not a joke. No one is allowed to bully my daughter. Do you understand?" My mother's words were like a powerful shot of adrenaline, washing away all my frustration and fatigue. She was always my safe harbor, the one who flawlessly paved the way for me to correct my youthful mistakes. "Yes, I understand, Mom. I'll do exactly as you say. Please take care of yourself." I hung up and took a deep breath. The kitchen now reeked of burnt meat. I calmly turned off the stove, scooped the blackened, dried-out pieces of beef onto an expensive porcelain plate, and ladled the overly salty, greasy soup into a bowl. A triumphant smile formed on my lips. The welcoming meal for my uninvited guests was ready. I carried the tray of food and set it down hard on the long, solid oak dining table. The clatter of dishes echoed dryly. "Lunch is ready. Please come and eat," I called out, my tone deliberately indifferent. The family of 5 trudged from the living room to the dining area. Gary sat at the head of the table, assuming the role of the patriarch. Brenda sat beside him, her sharp eyes scanning the dishes. Suddenly, she wrinkled her nose. "Good Lord, what is that burnt smell? What kind of cooking is this?" She picked up a blackened piece of beef with her fork, held it up to her eyes, and then dropped it back onto the tray with a thud. Gary took a spoonful of the soup. The moment it touched his tongue, his face contorted, and he hastily spat the mouthful onto my pristine, polished floor. "God almighty, this is so salty it could kill you. Are you trying to poison us? A pig wouldn't even eat this." Gary slammed his chopsticks down on the table, his voice a furious roar. Kyle and Tiffany followed suit, dropping their utensils in disgust. "You cook this terribly, and you expect to marry my brother? Our family is so unlucky. How are we supposed to swallow this?" Tiffany pouted. Brenda shot up from her chair, planting both hands on the table and pointing a finger straight at my face. "That's it. Forget it. Nobody is eating this disgusting garbage. Get this trash out of my sight. It's hot out, so take some money, run down to the corner, and buy me 3 large meat lovers pizzas and 5 buckets of fried chicken. And be quick about it. My Kyle is about to pass out from hunger." I stood with my arms crossed, looking directly into Brenda's eyes, and replied in the firmest voice I could muster. "My hand is injured and in a lot of pain. It's currently 102 degrees outside. With my hand like this, it's not convenient for me to go out right now. If you want fast food, you can download a delivery app on your phone and have it brought right here. I'll give you cash to pay for it." My clear refusal was like a bucket of cold water thrown on Brenda's arrogance. In all my previous visits to their home in Ohio, I had always been submissive, obediently cleaning and washing dishes like a servant to win her favor. She was not used to being denied. Brenda's face flushed a deep red, the veins in her neck bulging. Well, look at you today. You dare talk back to your future mother-in-law? I tell you to go buy food, and you have the nerve to argue? You're too lazy to do one simple thing?" Kyle suddenly pushed his chair back and stood up, striding toward me. He was tall and had the look of a street thug. He stared at me with a menacing, aggressive glint in his eyes. "Who do you think you're talking to? You think because you bought this house, you're something special. My mom tells you to go, you go. If you don't, Don't even think about setting foot in the Harris family. When Ethan gets home, I'll tell him to call off the wedding and kick you to the curb so you learn your place." Crystal, sitting beside him, chimed in with a smirk. "That's right, Maya. A woman has to know how to please her husband's family. You're so stubborn, you're going to have a hard life." I glanced around at the five age-old faces staring me down. The threat of calling off the wedding, which Kyle had just uttered, was, ironically, the one thing I was now hoping for most. I looked straight at Kyle, unblinking, a cold curve forming on my lips. Whether Ethan calls off the wedding or not is between him and me. But right now, my hand hurts, and I am not going to buy food. If you want to eat, you'll have to figure it out yourselves. With that, I turned decisively and walked toward the staircase, heading straight for the third floor, where my small reading room was located. I went inside and locked the door, ignoring the sounds of cursing and furniture being slammed around that echoed up from the ground floor. Leaning against the door, I pulled out my phone and switched on the voice recorder. The vulgar curses, the insults directed at my family from Brenda and Kyle's mouths, every single word was captured. The afternoon wore on. I sat patiently in the room, waiting for the main character of this tragedy to appear. I wanted to see how the man I had once loved with all my heart would act when caught between his fiancée and his outrageous family. That would be the final straw, the one that would seal the fate of this fraudulent love affair. As dusk began to settle over Bel Air, the oppressive afternoon heat finally began to subside, but inside my house, the atmosphere was more suffocating than ever. The familiar sound of a car engine purred outside the gate. Ethan was home from work. Normally, that sound brought me a sense of warmth and peace. But today, it felt like the tolling of a bell, signaling that the ridiculous drama was about to escalate. The front door opened, and Ethan walked in, briefcase in hand, his face etched with fatigue from a long day at the office. Before he could even take off his dress shoes, his family of five swarmed him like a disturbed nest of hornets. Brenda was the first to reach him. She grabbed her son's arm, her face a mask of misery, as crocodile tears began to stream down her cheeks. She wailed, dramatically recounting a completely fabricated version of the day's events. Brenda sobbed, loudly accusing me of looking down on my future in-laws. She claimed I had deliberately burned the food and made it indelibly salty to passive-aggressively kick them out. She even invented a story about me screaming at Gary and treating Tiffany and Kyle with contempt, and then refusing to buy them food, forcing the entire family to starve since noon. Gary stood beside her, sighing dramatically and clasping his hands behind his back, as if he were the long-suffering victim. Kyle and Crystal chimed in with snide remarks, calling me a cruel woman who wanted to dominate her husband's family before she had even married into it. I walked down from the third floor, stopping on the landing of the grand staircase, my arms crossed. I watched their masterful performance, waiting for a single question from Ethan, a moment of objective verification from the man who had sworn to protect me for the rest of his life. But what I received was the deepest disappointment imaginable. Ethan looked up at me, his eyes blazing with accusation and anger. He didn't bother to ask me a single question, didn't even glance at the white bandage wrapped around my finger. He threw his briefcase onto the sofa, stomped over to the bottom of the stairs, and pointed a finger directly at my face. "Maya, what the hell is wrong with you? I told you before, my family is from a small town, they're not rich. My parents worked their fingers to the bone to raise me. I bring them here to visit, and as their future daughter-in-law, you should be serving them, making them feel welcome. Why did you let my parents go hungry? Why were you so disrespectful to my mother? You have a college degree, but you act like you have no class at all. You get down here right now and apologize to my parents and my siblings." Every word from Ethan was like an invisible knife, slicing through the last shred of affection I had for him. For 3 years, I had believed he was a kind, hard-working, and devoted son. I had hidden my true identity, concealed my family's wealth, just so he wouldn't feel insecure. Every time I visited his family in Ohio, I had tolerated their different lifestyle, patiently helping out around the house. But now, the velvet curtain had fallen. Standing before me was not a mature man, but a weak, spineless, mama's boy obsessed with appearances. He was willing to trample on the dignity of the woman he claimed to love just to appease his family's outrageous demands. I looked straight into Ethan's eyes, my voice as cold and emotionless as ice. "You're not even going to ask me what happened? You're just going to condemn me? Do you have any idea that your mother barged into my house, started assigning rooms, and ordered me around like a servant? Did you see that my hand is bleeding because I was forced to do things that a guest should never demand of a host? Don't give me your excuses. Ethan cut me off, his brow furrowed as he yelled. My parents are your elders. So what if they asked you to do a few things? You're just lazy because you've had it easy your whole life. This house, after we get married next month, it will be my house, too. My parents have the right to make decisions here. Stop acting like a spoiled princess and apologize to my mother. Now, my tolerance had reached its absolute limit. The blindfold of love was ripped away, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. I smiled, a bitter but incredibly liberating smile. I had seen to the very bottom of this man's pathetic character. My mother's plan had been perfect. This relationship had to end. The tense atmosphere hung heavy in the living room. Gary's family looked on with smug satisfaction as they watched Ethan berate me. Brenda smirked, crossing her legs and settling back into the sofa, waiting for my bow of apology. Tiffany and Kyle high-fived each other victoriously. They thought their beloved son's dominance would terrify me into submission. But I was no longer angry. My goal now wasn't to win a verbal sparring match. I needed quiet to prepare for the decisive blow the next morning. I took a deep breath, shifted my demeanor, and put on a look of hurt resignation. All right, if that's what you believe, then I have nothing more to say. I'll go get food for everyone. Pizza and fried chicken, right? Please, just relax. I'll be back in a little while. With that, I turned and walked to my room to grab my car keys and purse, gliding past Ethan without a second glance. My injured hand made it impossible to grip the handlebars of a motorcycle, but driving an air-conditioned car was manageable. I stepped out of the suffocating mansion and started my car. The cool, quiet interior, a world away from the chaos I just left, calmed my mind. I drove slowly down the tree-lined streets of Bel Air, pulled over, and called Catherine. My mother's voice, always warm and protective, answered, "Sweetheart, what's the situation now? Did that Ethan boy cause a scene when he got home?" I sighed and recounted Ethan's blind defense of his family and his baseless accusations. My mother let out a short, cold laugh of contempt. Just as I predicted, a man raised with such a selfish, utilitarian mindset can never possess a fair and compassionate perspective. Consider this an expensive life lesson, my dear. Fortunately, this all happened before the wedding. For tonight, just endure it. Buy them their food. Let them eat their fill. Tomorrow morning, at 7 a.m. sharp, Jessica and Mr. Chin will be there. I've already prepared all the legal documents. You won't have to lift a finger. Just let my people take out the trash. I agreed, a sense of relief washing over me. I stopped at a well-known fast food chain and bought the exact amount of fried chicken, pizza, and soda Brenda had demanded. It cost nearly $300, but I considered it a final charitable donation to people who were about to pay a much higher price. When I walked back into the house carrying the fragrant bags of food, the family, including Ethan, was laughing and chatting loudly in the living room. Seeing me, their attitudes immediately turned cold and condescending. I placed the food bags firmly on the glass coffee table. "Here's your food. I'm going up to my room to rest now. My hand hurts, and I'm exhausted." Not a single person said thank you. Kyle and Crystal ripped open the bags, grabbing pieces of chicken and devouring them greedily. Gary opened a pizza box and began eating, nodding in approval. Brenda glanced at me and waved a dismissive hand. "Go on, get out of here. You're an eyesore. Ethan, come eat with your family." I turned and walked straight upstairs. They had taken the master suite in the large guest room, so I had to settle for the smallest bedroom at the end of the second-floor hallway. I went inside and double-locked the door. Outside, the sounds of laughter, chewing, and the blaring TV continued. I went into the bathroom, let the warm water run, and washed away the fatigue and grime of a terrible day. I lay down on the single bed and closed my eyes. It would be a long night for them, but for me, it would be the best sleep I'd had in a long time, because I knew, without a doubt, that tomorrow's dawn would bring the most glorious, satisfying revelation of the truth. The bright morning sun of another April day sliced through the gap in the curtains, waking me. I stretched, feeling a sense of renewal spread through my body. I had slept deeply and dreamlessly. The clock read 6:30 a.m. It was time to start the new day. I stepped out of my room. The mansion was shrouded in silence. Gary's family and Ethan must have stayed up late, reveling in their false victory, and were now fast asleep. I went downstairs to the main floor. and the sight that greeted me made me wrinkle my nose in disgust. Empty pizza boxes and chicken bones were strewn across the coffee table and had even fallen onto the pristine white wool rug. Half-empty soda cans lay on their sides on the sofa. My home, a place where I had meticulously designed and cherished every corner, now looked like a garbage-strewn battlefield. I didn't bother to clean up. I wanted to preserve this scene as evidence of the slovenly, destructive nature of my uninvited guests. I calmly walked into the kitchen and brewed myself a cup of strong, black coffee. Its bitter, aromatic scent helped to clear my mind completely. At precisely 7 a.m., the video doorbell rang. I glanced at the monitor. Standing outside the gate were my assistant, Jessica, and our lawyer, Mr. Chen. Jessica was dressed in a sharply tailored gray pantsuit, her hair in a neat bun, exuding an air of cool professionalism. Beside her was Mr. Chen, a man in his late 40s with a stern, square-jawed face, carrying a crocodile leather briefcase filled with legal documents. I pressed the button to open the gate. The iron gate slid open, admitting my mother's two most capable lieutenants. I went to the front door to greet them. "Good morning, Jessica." "Good morning, Mr. Chen. Thank you for making the trip out here so early." I smiled. Jessica bowed her head respectfully. "Good morning, Ms. Sterling. Chairwoman Sterling has given us full authority to handle this matter. Please, feel free to stand back and observe. We will restore fairness and order to your home." Mr. Chen nodded, adjusting the glasses on his nose. "Not to worry, Miss Sterling. I have all the necessary legal documents. The deed to the property, the audio recordings, and evidence of damages fully prepared. Shall we begin?" "They're sleeping upstairs. They've taken over my master's suite. Please, follow me," I replied, leading the way up the wooden staircase. The steady, determined sound of our 3 sets of footsteps echoed with an air of authority. We walked directly to the second floor, stopping before the intricately carved oak door of the master bedroom. It was silent inside. Jessica glanced at me for permission, then raised her hand and knocked 3 loud, firm times on the door. The sharp sound reverberated through the quiet hallway like a judge's gavel before sentencing. Jessica's knocking went unanswered. She knocked again, harder and more insistently this time. From inside, we heard stirring and the grumpy mumbling of someone being woken up. The door was suddenly yanked open from within. Brenda appeared, her hair a disheveled mess, her pajamas rumpled, her eyes barely open. Seeing the 3 of us standing there, she jumped, the sleepiness vanishing from her eyes. She put her hands on her hips and yelled, "What is all this? Who's banging on the door like the police at this hour of the morning? Maya, what are you doing bringing strangers to your future in-law's bedroom? Don't you have any manners?" Gary was also shuffling out of bed, hastily slipping his feet into a pair of slippers, his face a mask of irritation. I took half a step back, ceding the stage to the professionals. Jessica took a step forward, her poised demeanor unshaken by Brenda's aggressive tone. "Good morning, ma'am. My name is Jessica, and I am the executive assistant to the chairwoman of Sterling Properties. This is Mr. Chen, legal counsel for Miss Maya Sterling. We are here at the request of Miss Sterling's family to address a matter of illegal trespassing." Hearing the words, "illegal trespassing," Brenda scoffed, her face a mask of contempt. "What did you say? Trespassing? Are you insane? This is my son's house. Next month, he's marrying Maya, and this entire property will belong to the Harris family. I am the mother-in-law. I have the right to stay in any room I choose. Who the hell do you people think you are, meddling in our family business?" Mr. Chen stepped forward coolly. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick file. From it, he carefully extracted the official deed to the property. He opened it to the page listing the owner's name and held it up for Brenda and Gary to see. "I suggest you both look at this very carefully. This deed was issued by the County of Los Angeles. Under the section for registered owner, there is only one name, Maya Elizabeth Sterling. This mansion was purchased with Miss Sterling's personal assets, paid in full, with absolutely no financial contribution from your son, Mr. Ethan Harris. Legally, Mr. Harris has no rights or claims whatsoever to this $5 million property." Brenda stared at the bold print on the document, her face beginning to change color. Her initial arrogance was rapidly giving way to sheer confusion. Gary squinted, reading every word, sweat beading on his forehead. Mr. Chen continued, his voice firm and sharp as a razor. "Therefore, The act of you and your children using a security code to enter this home without the direct consent of Miss Sterling, occupying her living space, damaging her property, and verbally abusing the homeowner constitutes the crime of trespassing, as defined by the California Penal Code. If we report this to the authorities, this act is fully prosecutable. The lawyer's declaration hit Brenda and Gary like a bolt of lightning. They stood frozen, their mouths agape, unable to utter a word. At that moment, the commotion had woken Ethan, Tiffany, Kyle, and Crystal in the other rooms. The four of them stumbled out into the hallway, just in time to hear the lawyer's steely warning. The play had officially entered its next act. The sudden revelation of the truth sent the Harris family into a state of shock. Ethan stood there, staring at me, his eyes wide with disbelief and horror. He had always believed I was just a low-level employee who had probably taken out a massive mortgage that he would have to help pay off after the wedding. He never dreamed that this mansion was a liquid asset worth millions, belonging solely to me. Backed into a corner, Brenda realized that logic and the law were not on her side. Instead of accepting the truth and leaving with a shred of dignity, she resorted to the last-ditch tactic of the desperate and shameless, playing the victim. Brenda's knees suddenly buckled, and she collapsed onto the hardwood floor. She began slapping her thighs repeatedly, wailing at the top of her lungs. The ear-piercing sound made everyone flinch. "Oh dear, Lord in heaven, everyone, come and see how these rich people use their money to bully poor, simple folk. You tricked my son. You tricked my whole family into coming here just to throw us out on the street. My son Ethan helped pick out this house. And now she's turning her back on her own family. You wicked, heartless woman. Oh, Lord, can you see the injustice being done to my family?" Seeing his wife's performance, Gary immediately joined in. He pointed a trembling finger at my face. His own face beat red, and hurled the most vicious insults he could muster. "You, Maya, you've gone too far. My family may be poor, but we have our pride. Who do you think you're scaring by bringing a lawyer here? Fine, we'll leave. This wedding is off. My son, Ethan, would have to be blind to marry a venomous snake like you." Kyle and Tiffany, standing behind them, added their own stream of insults. Tiffany stomped her foot. "You think because you have money you can do whatever you want? You bully my mom. Let's see who will ever want to marry a washed-up old maid like you." I stood silently, watching this pathetic melodrama unfold. Their crude, noisy display was a stark contrast to the cold, calm demeanor of myself, Jessica, and Mr. Chen. My emotions were a complete blank. There was no hatred, only a profound sense of contempt. I turned to Mr. Chen and asked in a perfectly composed voice, "Mr. Chen, have you recorded this entire performance of slander and false accusation?" Mr. Chen nodded slightly, holding up his phone, which was in video recording mode. "Yes, Miss Sterling. I have documented everything as evidence." I nodded, my gaze as sharp as a knife as it swept over the hostile faces of Ethan's family. "Excellent. In that case, please call the Los Angeles Police Department and the Bel Air Security Patrol immediately. Inform them that a group of trespassers has illegally entered the premises, damaged property, and is now causing a public disturbance, engaging in slander and defamation. Request that they dispatch officers to forcibly remove them from my property." At the mention of LAPD and forcibly remove, Brenda's wails caught in her throat. Her mouth was still wide open, but the sound had died completely. Gary flinched, his pointing finger retracting as if he'd been shocked. Kyle and Tiffany's eyes widened in fear, and they didn't dare utter another word. The primal fear of the law had completely crushed the uneducated arrogance of this greedy family. Their victim act had failed spectacularly, leaving them to face a harsh and unforgiving reality. Brenda's fake sobs died as if a switch had been flipped. In the sudden silence of the second-floor hallway, Mr. Chen's declaration about calling the LAPD and local security had an immediate and absolute chilling effect. These people, accustomed to bullying the weak with noise and aggression in their small town, were now facing the formidable power of the law in a major city. I carefully observed the expressions on each of their faces. Gary, the man who prided himself on being the head of the family, who was always lecturing me on patriarchal values whenever I visited Ohio, was now pale, his hands trembling visibly. He knew full well that if the LAPD showed up and filed a report for trespassing, his reputation would be utterly destroyed. Worse, the entire family could end up with a criminal record, an indelible stain for people so obsessed with their hollow pride. Gary scrambled forward, bent down, and grabbed Brenda's arm as she sat on the floor. He yanked her to her feet, his voice a hoarse, panicked whisper. "Get up! What do you think you're doing? Stop this nonsense. This isn't the town square back home where you can make a scene. She has the deed. She has a lawyer. Do you want the whole family to get hauled off to jail in handcuffs? Get up, now." Brenda staggered to her feet, her face crumpled with fear, tears and snot smearing her face, which was now drained of all color. She looked desperately at her precious son for help, but Ethan was in a state of shock himself. He was leaning against a wall, his arms limp at his sides, his gaze vacant, not daring to look at me or the lawyer. The cowardice of the man I had once loved was laid bare, and it was a pitiful sight. Kyle and Tiffany, the two siblings used to getting their way through intimidation, had shrunk back like turtles into their shells. Kyle had lost all of his thuggish bravado from the day before. He retreated behind his father, his eyes darting around, looking for an escape. Tiffany clutched Crystal's arm, both girls trembling. The fear of legal consequences had shattered their arrogant facade. I stepped forward, standing directly in front of the cowering family of 5. My voice was calm and clear, without a trace of anger or resentment. They were no longer worthy of my emotional energy. "I believe you all understand your current situation. I don't wish to escalate this, provided you are reasonable. This house is my private property. I am the sole owner, and I bought it with my own hard-earned money. Your actions breaking in, destroying my property, and insulting me are a serious violation of the law. I have ample evidence, from the security camera at the gate, to the audio recording from yesterday afternoon, to the testimony of my lawyer and my assistant." I paused, letting my words sink into their panicked minds. "I am now giving you exactly 30 minutes. 30 minutes to pack all of your luggage and personal belongings and get out of my house. If, after 30 minutes, any one of you is still here, Mr. Chin will immediately contact the LAPD and forward all evidence to the district attorney's office. At that point, you will have to answer to the law, and there will be no more opportunities for negotiation." After speaking, I turned to Jessica and Mr. Chin and gave them a slight nod. We all stepped back, standing together at the top of the stairs, creating an invisible but immense pressure. Without a word, the Harris family scrambled into the bedrooms. The sounds of zippers being frantically pulled, clothes being shoved into suitcases, and belongings clattering filled the air. Brenda muttered incomprehensibly as she packed, but she didn't dare raise her voice to curse again. Gary repeatedly urged his children to hurry up. Their frantic, messy scramble was a complete reversal of the arrogant, self-satisfied demeanor they had when they first walked through my gates yesterday afternoon. They looked like burglars caught in the act, trying to make a pathetic escape. Those 30 minutes passed agonizingly slowly for them. But for me, they were exhilarating. I watched the wall clock, counting down each minute. At the 29th minute, the 5 of them emerged from the bedrooms, dragging their 3 tattered suitcases and cardboard boxes. Their faces were ashen with humiliation. They kept their heads down, not daring to look at me, as they shuffled toward the stairs, preparing to leave the place they had fantasized about owning. But they didn't know that the price for their greed and arrogance wasn't just being kicked out the door. The whole family trudged down to the ground floor, the wheels of their suitcases making a heavy, clattering sound on the oak floors. Ethan, carrying his briefcase, trailed meekly behind his parents. They surely believed that once they were out the door, they would be free from trouble, free from the threat of the law. They were wrong. My mother, Catherine Sterling, a seasoned veteran of the corporate battlefield, never taught me to be lenient with those who deliberately try to harm me. Just as Gary, leading the way, reached for the front door handle, Jessica moved with lightning speed. She blocked the door with her arm, barring the only exit. Her eyes were like ice, and the air of authority she radiated, as a representative of a major corporation, made Gary flinch and take a few steps back. "Excuse me," Jessica said, her voice crisp and clear. "Our business here is not concluded." Hearing this, Brenda's face contorted in panic. She clutched her purse to her chest, her voice trembling. "What more do you want? We've packed our things. We're giving Maya her house back. She promised she wouldn't call the cops if we left. Don't push us too far." Mr. Chin calmly stepped up beside Jessica. He opened his file and took out a typed document. "Ma'am, your voluntary departure is merely the condition under which we will temporarily refrain from pressing criminal charges for trespassing. However, in terms of civil law, Your family has caused significant damage to my client's property and inflicted emotional distress. As per the law, any party that infringes upon another's property, honor, or dignity is liable for compensation. Mr. Chen began to read aloud from the itemized list. First, the imported Italian leather sofa, valued at $50,000, was stained with soda and covered in garbage by your family. We will need to hire a specialized professional cleaning service for high-end leather. Second, all of the silk sheets in 2 bedrooms were used while you were unbathed and have been soiled. They must be discarded and replaced. Third, the cost of hiring an industrial cleaning crew to deep clean and disinfect the entire mansion. Fourth, compensation for the emotional distress inflicted upon Miss Sterling when your family verbally abused her and forced her to perform labor while she was injured. Mr. Chen paused, looking directly at Gary and Brenda. The total cost for specialized cleaning, replacement of bedding, disinfection, and emotional distress comes to a rounded figure of $20,000. To settle this matter immediately, this is a compensatory figure meant to serve as a deterrent. I require your family to transfer this amount to Miss Sterling's account immediately. If not, this door will remain closed, and I will be forced to contact the authorities to resolve this according to proper legal procedure. Hearing the sum of $20,000, Brenda looked as though she'd been struck by lightning. She staggered, nearly dropping her purse. For a family from rural Ohio, $20,000 was a colossal sum, the result of years of scrimping and saving. She turned and grabbed Gary's shirt, sobbing. "Gary, where are we going to get $20,000? They're robbing us. This is broad daylight robbery." Gary gritted his teeth and turned to Ethan for help, but Ethan just stared at the floor, his hands clenched in helpless fists. He'd only been working for a few years. His manager's salary was just enough to cover his own expenses and send a little home. He didn't have that kind of money readily available. I stood with my arms crossed, watching them squirm in their desperation. "Brenda, you can call relatives, friends. I'll give you another 15 minutes to figure it out. But I'll remind you, my patience has a limit. If that money isn't in my account, none of you are walking out that door." The tension was palpable. Under the intimidating pressure of Jessica, the sharp legal mind of Mr. Chen, and my own cold composure, the Harris family completely crumbled. Brenda shakily pulled out her smartphone and frantically called a few relatives. After a series of humiliating conversations begging to borrow money, she finally managed to scrape together the amount. She opened her banking app, her trembling fingers punching in my account number. The notification chime on my phone sounded loud and clear. I checked the screen, confirming that a transfer of $20,000 had been successfully received. I nodded at Jessica. Jessica released her arm from the door and stepped back. "Before you leave," Mr. Chen said in a commanding voice, "I require all of you to bow your heads and apologize to Miss Sterling for your outrageous behavior and your insulting words." Gary's jaw tightened, his face flushing with rage and shame. But he had no other choice. He tugged on Brenda's sleeve and hissed, "Apologize to her. Then let's get the hell out of here." The entire family of 5 Gary, Brenda, Kyle, Tiffany, and Crystal bowed their heads in unison. These people, who just yesterday had puffed out their chests, calling themselves my superiors and forcing me to serve them, were now standing before me like convicted criminals. "We're sorry, Maya." The apology that escaped their lips was forced, bitter, and utterly insincere. But I didn't care about their sincerity. I only cared about the result. Jessica pulled the front door wide open. Bright sunlight flooded the living room. The family scrambled out with their suitcases, hurrying across the front yard before disappearing beyond the massive iron gates. The drama of the greedy had ended with a humiliating and bitter finale. Just as the Harris family vanished from sight, the mansion instantly returned to its inherent tranquility. Jessica and Mr. Chen stayed a moment longer to organize their paperwork. I saw them to the door, offering my sincere thanks for their professional and timely assistance. Jessica smiled and reminded me to call and let the chairwoman know I was all right before she left. I had just turned back inside, intending to pour myself a glass of water, when my phone rang. The caller ID displayed, Ethan. I stared at the flashing name, feeling no flicker of sadness or regret. Our 3-year love, my tolerance, and my silent sacrifices had all been crushed by his own hands yesterday afternoon. I took a sip of water to clear my throat, then calmly answered the call, putting it on speakerphone and hitting record. The moment the call connected, Ethan's furious shouting erupted from the other end. His voice was cracked with rage. Maya, are you insane? What the hell did you do? You called a lawyer to threaten my parents, kicked my entire family out onto the street, and then forced my mom to pay you $20,000. You are a cold-blooded, heartless monster. Do you know my mom is out there crying her eyes out? You think because you have money you can buy a conscience? I let him vent his toxic tirade. When he finally paused for breath, I answered slowly, my voice clear and as sharp as ice. Are you finished? If so, it's my turn. First, your family trespassed on my property and destroyed my things. My lawyer acted in accordance with the law to protect my rights. That $20,000 was for damages, not something I stole from your family. Second, the ones who are cold-blooded and have no conscience are you and your family. You sided with them as they trampled on the dignity of the woman you supposedly love. You forced me to serve them when I was injured. You stood by while your parents insulted me in the very house I bought with my own money. Confronted with my sharp logic, Ethan was at a loss for words. But his arrogant nature and his habit of gaslighting prevented him from admitting fault. He raised his voice again, pulling out his final weapon, the one he thought I feared the most. Stop twisting things and making excuses. If you don't know how to be a submissive, respectful wife, then don't even think about marrying into the Harris family. I'm giving you one last chance. Right now, you will bring that $20,000 back to my mother, and then you will get on your knees and properly apologize to my parents. I will bring everyone back to the mansion to live. If you can't do that, then we're breaking up. The wedding is off. Let's see what man will want to marry an old maid like you after you've been dumped. I burst out laughing, a laugh that felt incredibly liberating and refreshing. The absurdity of this pathetic man was beyond my imagination. He still thought I was a lovesick girl, clinging to him for the hope of a husband. He had no idea I was the daughter of a powerful dynasty, with more than enough strength to demolish a toxic relationship without shedding a single tear. Ethan, listen to me very carefully. I agree. We're breaking up. The wedding is canceled. You don't need to threaten me with a Harris family name. Because even if you rolled out a red carpet, I would find the thought of joining that family repulsive. For the past 3 years, I hid my true identity, concealed my family's wealth, all to protect your fragile ego. I wanted a sincere love, but I mistakenly chose a social climbing, weak-willed mama's boy. Ethan was stunned into silence. The words true identity must have struck a chord with his curiosity and greed. He stammered, about to ask, what are you talking about? What true identity? But I didn't give him the chance. You don't need to know. From this moment on, we are finished. Don't ever call me or show your face to me again. Goodbye. I ended the call. Immediately, I went into my contacts and blocked his number. I opened every social media app, Facebook, Instagram, Zalo, and blocked his account and the accounts of everyone in his family. All lines of communication were severed, like excising a malignant tumor. A little pain at first, but it guaranteed a healthy life for all the years to come. Our 3-year relationship was officially over, and in its place was a clear, open sky of freedom. After dealing with the mess that was Ethan, I felt an incredible lightness in both body and mind. However, as my eyes scanned the mansion, a sense of unease returned. The remnants of those thoughtless people were everywhere. The smell of old takeout, stale sweat, and leftover food mingled in the air, creating a suffocating atmosphere. This house was my sanctuary. I couldn't allow their filth to taint it for another moment. I picked up my phone and called a high-end industrial cleaning company that my mother's corporation frequently used. Just 45 minutes later, a team of 10 employees in professional uniforms arrived. They brought with them state-of-the-art equipment, high-powered vacuums, steam cleaners for the upholstery, an aerosol disinfection machine, and an array of environmentally safe cleaning chemicals. I stood in the living room, directly supervising the team leader. Have your team clear out all the trash on the ground floor. This leather sofa, if you can't get the stains out completely, have it hauled to the dump. I'll buy a new one. Upstairs, I want you to gather all the bed linens, pillowcases, and comforters from the master suite and the guest room they used. Put everything in black trash bags. I don't want to keep anything they touched. Have the mattresses professionally deep cleaned and sanitized. If you can't get the smell out, throw them out too. The team leader nodded and immediately dispatched his crew. The roar of vacuums filled the house. Large black trash bags were constantly being carried downstairs, piling up by the door for a disposal truck to collect. I watched as the expensive silk bedding was tossed unceremoniously into the trash without a pang of regret. To me, cleanliness and peace of mind were more valuable than any material possession. For 3 hours, the cleaning crew worked tirelessly. They cleaned every crevice of the hardwood floors, polished the crystal chandelier, and wiped every handprint from the glass walls. The final step was to spray a disinfecting solution and diffuse a natural lemongrass essential oil throughout every corner of the house. By the time the crew packed up and left, the sun was beginning to set. The evening light streamed through the crystal-clear windows, casting sparkling reflections on the gleaming floors. The mansion had regained its elegant, serene beauty, now fragrant with the scent of lemongrass. The filthy remnants of the Harris family had been completely purged, without a single speck of dust remaining. I stepped out onto the second-floor balcony, leaning against the glass railing and taking a deep breath of the fresh evening air. The peaceful view of the Los Angeles skyline brought a strange sense of calm. I dialed my mother's number. On the other end, Catherine's warm voice answered. "Is everything settled now, sweetheart?" "Yes, it's all done, Mom. They're gone. They paid the $20,000 in damages, and I've had the house professionally cleaned. I just wanted to call and let you know everything is okay. Thank you for sending your people to help me resolve this so quickly." I replied cheerfully. My mother laughed gently. "Silly girl, there's no need for thanks between us. You see, a woman must have her own career, her own assets, and a clear head to avoid being trampled on. Consider this a lesson in growing up. Get some rest. Come home for dinner with me this weekend." "I will, Mom. Talk to you soon." I hung up, ready to enjoy the first peaceful evening in my new home. I cooked myself a simple meal and watched a favorite movie. I thought the nightmare was finally over, that tomorrow would be the start of a bright new chapter. But I had severely underestimated the depravity and bottomless greed of petty people. Another, more sinister plot was already brewing in the shadows. A late-night drizzle fell over Los Angeles, cooling the air. I was deep in a peaceful slumber on my freshly made bed when my phone on the nightstand began to vibrate violently. A relentless stream of message notifications shattered the quiet. I groaned, forcing my eyes open, and reached for the phone. The clock read 2 a.m. An unknown number was spamming my inbox with a series of images. I rubbed my eyes and opened the messages. My heart stopped. Before me were a series of extremely explicit photos. They depicted a nude woman in various lewd poses with several strange men. The most horrific part was that the woman's face was mine. Though the image quality was blurry and the lighting was poor, anyone would recognize me as Maya Sterling, the creative director of Sterling Properties. I shot upright in bed, all sleepiness gone. My hand tightened around the phone. These were clearly sophisticated, photoshopped fakes. But who could harbor so much hatred as to stoop to such a despicable tactic to ruin my reputation? Before I could think further, the unknown number started calling. I took a deep, steadying breath and swiped to answer. I said nothing, waiting for the other side to speak first. A shrill, nasal female voice with a thick, rural accent I vaguely recognized came through the speaker. "Well, hello, Director Maya. Bet you can't sleep now, huh? Did you enjoy the little gifts I sent you?" I racked my brain. The voice was familiar. It took me a few seconds to place it. It was Sheila, a distant cousin of Brenda's. Back in their small Ohio town, she had a reputation as a sly, shady character who worked as a pawnbroker and had connections to local troublemakers. I had met this cunning woman a few times on my visits. Brenda, furious after being kicked out and losing $20,000, must have sought out Sheila for revenge. "Sheila, what is the point of this pathetic little game?" I asked coldly, my voice betraying none of the panic she expected. Sheila cackled on the other end, a sound full of triumph and menace. "Smart girl, figuring me out so fast. We'll see how pathetic it is once I post it all over the internet. I hear your mom is the chairwoman of a big real estate empire. What do you think will happen to her company's stock when the press, the public, and all her business partners see photos of her precious daughter's wild escapades? The reputation of your distinguished family will be nothing but dust." I discreetly activated the call recording feature on a second phone I kept nearby. The composure I'd learned since childhood kept me from falling into the blackmailer's trap. "Get to the point. What do you want?" Sheila cleared her throat, her greed now on full display. "It's simple. Brenda is my family. You used your money to throw her family out on the street and stole $20,000 from her. Now she's stuck in some dingy, hot motel on the outskirts of LA. I want you to immediately transfer that $20,000 back to Brenda. Tomorrow, you will personally drive out there, pick up her entire family, and bring them back to your mansion in Bel Air. Then you will publicly get on your knees and apologize. Do those two things, and I will delete all the original photos. But if you dare call the cops or try anything funny, I swear I will hit post and upload these to every major news forum and social media site instantly. Their audacity had reached a new level. They actually thought these cheap, photoshopped images could bring down me and my mother's corporation. They had no idea that trying to blackmail a creative director who specializes in digital media with outdated, poorly edited photos was an act of supreme foolishness. I smirked. All right, I said, my voice deliberately casual. I need until tomorrow morning to arrange the money and the transportation. Keep your phone on. I'll have a formal answer for you in the morning. I hung up before Sheila could say another word. I tossed the phone onto the bed, my eyes glinting in the dark. They wanted to play a tech game with me? Fine. I would show them the full power of a world-class cybersecurity team. A perfect trap had been set. All I had to do was wait for the foolish animals to walk right into it. The morning light streamed through the large glass windows of the Bel Air mansion, bringing with it the clarity of a new day. Los Angeles, cleansed by the night's rain, felt fresh and cool. I brewed a pot of hot chamomile tea and sat down on the new velvet sofa in the living room, waiting calmly. At exactly 7:30 a.m., the gate bell rang. I checked the security camera and saw Jessica's car parked outside. Today, accompanying her and Mr. Chen were three young men in crisp white shirts, carrying heavy-duty laptop cases. This was the elite cybersecurity team from Sterling Properties. I opened the gate and walked out to greet them. Jessica entered, her expression serious. She nodded a greeting and got straight to the point. Good morning, Miss Sterling. The chairwoman received your report at dawn. She is furious about this despicable act. She has instructed us to bring our best cybersecurity experts to expose the truth and completely clear your name. I smiled and invited them to sit on the brand new sofa I'd had delivered last night. I took out my spare phone, played the recording of Sheila's extortion call for Mr. Chen and the team to hear. The shrill, threatening, and greedy voice of Sheila filled the quiet living room. Next, I forwarded the poorly edited, explicit photos to the head of the tech team, a young man named Alex. Alex took the data and quickly connected his specialized laptop. The other two tech experts opened their own machines, their fingers flying across the keyboards with a professional clatter. While we waited, I poured tea for Mr. Chen and Jessica. Mr. Chen took a sip, his face a mask of contempt for the fools who were digging their own graves. They're playing with fire, Mr. Chen said, his voice low but powerful. Extortion using fabricated images to defame someone is a very serious felony. Did they really think they could outsmart the people at Sterling Properties? Less than 15 minutes later, Alex looked up from his screen, a confident smile on his face. He turned his laptop toward us, pointing to several red circles on a magnified image. Miss Sterling, Mr. Chen, we're done. As you suspected, this is an incredibly amateurish cut-and-paste job. The person who made this used a basic photo editing app on a phone. If you look at the neck and face, the light on your face is natural light coming from the left. But the light on the body is fluorescent light from directly above. The pixelation at the seams is completely mismatched and broken. We used our software to analyze the image's core data and have already located the original, unedited photo of the other woman's body on an explicit website based overseas. Jessica nodded in satisfaction and instructed Alex to print out all the analytical data. A portable printer whirred to life, spitting out pages detailing the technical specifications and side-by-side comparisons that prove the forgery. Stamp this analysis with the official seal of the Corporate Cybersecurity Department, Jessica commanded. This will be irrefutable evidence for the investigators. I looked at the stack of documents, feeling a deep sense of pity for the Harris family. For $20,000 and their bruised egos, they were willing to sell their souls and walk down a criminal path. They thought I was a weak girl, afraid of public opinion, who would obediently bring them money on a platter. They were wrong. My patience was reserved for decent people. For the wicked, I would use the full force of the law to bring down the punishment they deserved. With the forensic analysis proving the photos were fake, our next step was to locate the criminals. Jessica signaled for Alex to begin the tracking process. For top-tier cybersecurity experts, finding the location of a cell phone that had recently sent messages was child's play. Alex typed complex command lines onto his screen, initiating a trace on the IP address of the internet connection Sheila had used. The keyboard clicked rhythmically. Suddenly, Alex clapped his hands once and pointed at a digital map on his screen. A red dot was blinking insistently in an area on the outskirts of Los Angeles. "Found them, Jessica," he announced. The blackmailer used the static Wi-Fi of a low-budget motel called the Sunset Inn, located down a small alley in the San Fernando Valley. "It's about an hour's drive from here. I've already breached the motel's lax security system. Take a look. Are these the people you're looking for?" Alex enlarged a frame from the motel's hallway camera. On the grainy screen, I immediately recognized Brenda in her loud, floral outfit, fanning herself. Beside her, Gary was smoking a cigarette. Sheila, the cunning cousin, was holding a phone, pointing at the screen and laughing triumphantly. A few seconds later, Kyle and Tiffany peeked out of their cramped motel room, looking on with eager anticipation. The picture was crystal clear. After being kicked out of my mansion, the Harris family had retreated to the city's outskirts, holing up in a rundown motel. Bitter over losing the money and their pride, Brenda had conspired with Sheila to orchestrate this vile blackmail scheme. They were all gathered together, smugly congratulating themselves, completely unaware that their every move was being watched. Mr. Chin quickly compiled the entire file. The image analysis, the blackmail call recording, the IP address data, the motel security footage, and my detailed written statement. He carefully placed it all back into his crocodile briefcase. "Miss Sterling, please stay here and rest. With this mountain of evidence, I will go directly to the Los Angeles Police Department's Major Crimes Division. This group's actions constitute two serious felonies: extortion and defamation. The police will immediately organize a team to raid the location and arrest them in the act. By this afternoon, at the latest, this will be completely resolved." Mr. Chen bowed his head and left with the tech team. Jessica stayed a moment longer to discuss some security protocols with me before she also departed. The house was quiet once more. I video called my mother. Catherine's kind but powerful face appeared on the screen. I recounted the entire process of gathering evidence and Mr. Chen's trip to the police. My mother listened, then nodded with satisfaction. "You did the right thing, my dear. A crisis must be handled swiftly, decisively, and legally. Never show mercy to evil, because your mercy only emboldens them. Now, go relax. Read a book. Those who sow the wind shall reap the whirlwind. The arm of the law is long." Her words were a soothing balm. I hung up and went out to the garden to water the roses, which were blooming beautifully in the morning sun. I knew that somewhere out there, the biggest storm of the Harris family's lives was about to break. Around 11 a.m., as the LA sun began to beat down again, I received a text from Mr. Chen. The LAPD had raided the Sunset Inn. They caught Sheila red-handed, phone in hand, composing another threatening message to me. The entire Harris family, Brenda, Gary, Kyle, Tiffany, and Crystal were apprehended on the spot. They were handcuffed and led to police vehicles, transported to headquarters for interrogation. All evidence on Sheila's phone and laptop was seized. The raid was swift and precise, a fatal blow to their foolish arrogance. I had just finished reading the message, smiling in relief, when my doorbell began to ring insistently. The security camera showed Ethan's face, sweaty and red with anger. He was at the gate, mashing the bell, muttering furiously. He must have just gotten off work and rushed here to settle the score for yesterday. He had no idea that his parents and siblings were, at this very moment, trembling in an interrogation room. I calmly opened the gate and stood on the porch with my arms crossed, waiting. Ethan screeched his car into the driveway and slammed it into park. He stomped toward me, pointing a finger at my face, and yelled, "Maya, you are a cruel, ruthless woman. Do you know my parents had to sleep in a disgusting, hot motel last night? My mother's blood pressure is through the roof. You've pushed us too far. Give my family their $20,000 back, right now, or I'll sue you for slander." I looked at the man before me without a shred of pity. His ignorance and blindness were pathetic. He truly believed his family were simple, good-hearted country folk, being bullied by a rich city girl. He had no idea that beneath that rustic veneer lay a nest of vipers, so greedy they would resort to the filthiest tactics to destroy someone. I didn't answer. I slowly walked back into the living room and picked up the file Mr. Chen had left for me. I returned to the porch and threw the entire file at Ethan's chest. The pages, filled with forensic analysis and photos, scattered across the granite steps. You want to sue me? That's interesting. Unfortunately for you, your family already beat you to the courthouse. They're at police headquarters right now, not as plaintiffs, but as suspects in a felony extortion and defamation case, I announced coldly. Ethan stumbled back, his eyes wide with shock. He bent down and picked up one of the pages. He saw the photoshopped image of my face on a naked body, along with the tech team's analysis highlighting the forgery. Ethan's hands began to shake. What is this? Why are you showing me this garbage? He stammered. I smirked with contempt. I pressed play on my phone. The recording of Sheila's blackmail call filled the air, every word clear, including the part where she mentioned Brenda was the mastermind, demanding the money back and a kneeling apology. Then, I showed him the video from the motel camera, forcing him to watch his parents and siblings laughing and celebrating with the blackmailer. Open your eyes and look. Open your ears and listen, I said, my voice cutting. Your parents, the simple, honest farmers you're so proud of, hired someone to fake pornographic photos of me to extort money. They tried to destroy my reputation and my mother's company. The true nature of your family is a pack of greedy, uneducated, and amoral lowlifes. Are you still going to stand here and demand justice for them? Every word was a sledgehammer blow to Ethan's fracturing mind. He stared at the evidence, listened to the recording a second time, his face draining of all color. The ugly, undeniable truth was laid bare. The idealized image he had of his family was shattered in an instant. Ethan stood frozen in the sunny yard, the damning evidence scattered at his feet like the broken pieces of his pride. He clutched his head and shook it, trying to find some excuse, any excuse, for his family's despicable actions. But it was hopeless. The arrogance of a man who loved to lecture others on family values and respect had become a bitter joke. I stood silently, watching the pathetic collapse of the man I once loved. For 3 years, I had protected and tolerated him. Now, it was his turn to taste the bitter fruit of his family's actions. Just then, his phone rang, the sound like a death knell. Ethan flinched, shakily pulling it from his pocket. It was an unfamiliar number. He hesitated for a second, then answered. The volume was loud enough for me to hear every word. Hello, am I speaking with Mr. Ethan Harris? A calm, official-sounding voice asked. Yes, this is he. Ethan stammered. This is Officer Davis with the LAPD Major Crimes Division. Your father, Gary Harris, your mother, Brenda Harris, and several other family members are currently being detained at our headquarters for investigation into charges of extortion and defamation. We require you to come to the station this afternoon to cooperate with our investigation and to claim any personal effects for the suspects. The phone slipped from Ethan's hand, clattering on the stone steps. His knees gave out, and he slowly crumpled to the ground. The psychological shock was too much. He collapsed in the hot sun, burying his face in his hands, and began to sob the broken cries of a weak, cowardly man who had just realized he had lost everything. Maya, I'm so sorry, he wailed, crawling toward me, trying to grab my legs. I had no idea they would do something so horrible. I was wrong. I was blind. I'm a terrible person. Please, you're a director. Your mom is a chairwoman. Your family has influence. Please tell your lawyer to drop the charges. If my parents go to jail, our family will be ruined. I'll do anything. I'm begging you. Please, have mercy on them. I took 2 quick steps back, my eyes as cold as ice. His pleas were worthless to me now. Get up. Don't dirty my porch. The law isn't a game you can start and stop whenever you feel like it. Your parents are adults. They must take responsibility for their criminal actions. If I didn't have the resources to defend myself, if I didn't have a strong family, my reputation would have been destroyed by them online. At that point, would you have been on your knees, begging them to have mercy on me? Ethan froze, tears streaming down his contorted face. He knew my words were the brutal truth. His family had shown no mercy, so why should I? We are broken up. From now on, the fate of the Harris family has nothing to do with me. Now, take your trash and get out of my house. And don't you ever show your face here again. I pointed to the gate, my voice hard and unforgiving. Without waiting for another word, I turned, walked back inside, and slammed the heavy oak door shut. The deadbolt clicked into place, sealing my peaceful world off from the filth and despair of the coward outside. Through the security monitor, I watched Ethan dazedly pick up the scattered papers, get into his car, and drive away. The iron gates closed automatically behind him, bringing a final, definitive end to a mistaken love. 3 months after the dramatic events at my Bel Air mansion, life had returned to its peaceful, orderly rhythm. Those who had sown evil had finally reaped their bitter harvest. The trial was swift. With overwhelming evidence, Sheila, as the mastermind, was sentenced to 3 years in state prison for extortion and defamation. Brenda, as an accomplice who instigated the plot, received a sentence of 24 months. Gary, while not directly involved, was found guilty of conspiracy and concealing a crime. He received probation and a massive fine. What little savings they had back in Ohio were wiped out paying legal fees and penalties. The Harris family was bankrupt, and their reputation in their hometown was in tatters. They were ostracized and scorned by their community. Kyle and Tiffany, though not criminally charged, saw their lives unravel. Without Ethan's financial support, Kyle fell deeper into gambling debt and had to skip town to escape his creditors. Tiffany was forced to drop out of college and take on menial jobs to survive. Crystal, seeing that the family was ruined, packed her bags and disappeared without a word. As for Ethan, the consequences were severe. News of his family's criminal conviction spread through his company. A manager whose family was known for extortion could not maintain credibility. The board of directors tactfully asked for his resignation. Jobless, ostracized by his colleagues, and crushed by the shame of his family, Ethan couldn't make it in Los Angeles anymore. He packed his bags, took a bus to a remote part of the country to find work, consumed by a deep and lasting regret for having lost a woman who had truly loved him, all because of his weakness and blind loyalty to his toxic mother. And me? I emerged from that toxic relationship like a bird freed from a cage, more proud and vibrant than ever. My Bel Air mansion was now a true sanctuary, filled with blooming roses and the soft melodies of classical music. I poured my energy into my work, leading my team to create innovative projects that brought in record profits for the company. On weekend evenings, I would drive my luxury car back to my family's estate in Beverly Hills for dinner with my mother. The meals were just the two of us, but they were filled with warmth and the simple, classic dishes I loved. Catherine looked at me, her eyes shining with pride. "You look so happy and radiant these days, my dear. And your work is thriving. I think buying you that mansion was one of the best decisions I ever made. It helped you see people for who they truly are and shed the dead weight so you can move forward." She served me a piece of grilled sea bass. I smiled as I accepted the plate. "Thank you, Mom. Because of you, I learned that forgiveness should only be given to those who deserve it. For a woman to be happy, she must first have the strength to stand on her own 2 feet, independent of any man. Love is precious, but respect and a foundation of decency are the non-negotiable requirements for a life together." Our dinner passed with easy laughter and a deep understanding between 2 generations. Outside, Los Angeles glittered with life. Life will always have its unexpected turns, but I believe that as long as one lives with integrity, self-respect, and resilience, the best and brightest things will always be waiting ahead. A new chapter in the life of Maya Sterling had truly begun, free, proud, and full of light. Thank you for spending your time with us until the end. If you found this story meaningful, please subscribe to the channel to support us, share it with your friends, and leave a comment below. Your support gives us the motivation to create more new content.